countries where food is a really important part of culture. So let's take France, Italy, and Spain, right, close to home here. The supermarket world over there, particularly as you move out of the cities, can be quite exciting. Like you can go to Tuscany and go to a local supermarket and you'll find, Roman courgettes with the flour still on at the supermarket.
Yes.
You'll never find that anywhere in the entire of the U.S. I don't know how many supermarkets there are in the U.S., but there are tens of thousands. You will not find they call them zucchinis there. You will not find a zucchini with flour in any supermarket, right? So
Why do they call it zucchini over there? And
I don't know.
yeah, and what's the other one? Cilantro.
Cilantro.
Yeah.
Coriander.
Yeah. I've always thought that, yeah.
And eggplant.
Yeah, aubergine, isn't it?
Aubergine, yeah.
Do you have to change the brand names when you're selling
Yeah,
it?
there we go.
I bet I'll wind you up.
So
that's so interesting. So it's cultural.
I think it's a very cultural thing, and because there's the demand for it. Because the demand is there, so the supermarket in Tuscany will go and source from some farm, and those regional supply chains are connected. So the U.S. is also no plastic like Australia, right? So all the produce is out.
Really?
Yeah, big piles, but obviously super industrial.
Yeah.
It comes from these mega farms. Most of it is coming from mega farms. Whole Foods Market is, of the large ones, the highest quality, and you do find some that 20-30% is there, right? That we were talking about. You do find, I've bought some really good cherries out of Whole Foods once. You do find good stuff there. But the U.S. is such a big country. They move, the volumes that they move are so massive. Just to give you a sense that the consumption of avocados in the U.S. just on Super Bowl weekend equals the total production of avocados in South Africa. And South Africa is one of the world's leading producers of avocados.
They're probably making it for their guacamole for their Doritos, aren't they? Exactly. That's such a beautiful juxtaposition, that.
Yeah. So those are the kind of differences. It's, I'd say that the bigger the country, it's a problem, and also the more removed they are from food being a really central part of the culture. You get it in Japan. I was there a couple of weeks ago. Like you can see that it's closer. It's still a supermarket. You can still get better produce if you find a market or a farmer's market and so forth. But a supermarket in Japan, a supermarket in Italy will be maybe 40, 50, 60%, right? Versus UK, US, you're looking more like the 20. And I'd say Australia is probably in the middle of that.
Yeah.
Produce that you find in Coles and Woolies.
What country has the biggest problems to overcome?
US.
Really? And that's because the consumer piece?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, 100%.
And then somewhere like Japan, where the reverence for food and like the artistry of what they do, it's almost like, because I'm trying to get a holistic view, because that's where I see whether it's making more sense, if that makes sense in my head. Yeah. That's probably got less issues, or what would you say the issues are in Japan? Because I went to Japan 5 years ago for the World Cup, and I was like, this is like mental. Like it's such a wild, like a kind of just insane country. Like what would you say their issues are? Because it seems like food's high on the agenda.
I have less visibility on what goes on there. I think what I would say is that it's a similar problem that you have in a place like Italy or Spain, which is that I would expect that people are cooking less. I know that is happening in continental Europe. And I think with cooking less and more convenience, things are being lost. So I think the risk there is losing too much of it, right? Moving too much into the kind of UK-US model where you really lean in convenience. I mean, in the US, a city like New York, like a lot of people don't even cook at home, ever.
Yeah.
Not even once a week.
Yeah.
So I think that's the risk over there, is with globalization, with industrialization, with convenience, with kids, our lives have changed, right? Kids are not learning to cook from their parents in the same way. Kids don't necessarily want to cook. Kids want to go out and eat at restaurants, right? So
Well,
think
if
that's
you've
where
got Call of Duty or a Spag Bowl, like as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, maybe it's a the opportunity costs at the minute, and that's why we need to get these kids cooking, or like the reverence for food, and make it aspirational and high status.
Yeah.
I read this thing the other day, which is like history and travel overlap. Like they give you a more developed perspective, but like the link of history and travel. So if you read about history, like again with the with all the stuff we're talking about sort of like evolution and why we've got to this state where we're at, I think linking that with travel, like you've seen a whole, this what Bourdain did a brilliant job of. Like you go around the globe the whole time, you see all these things. Like, what are the things you've learned with this problem about sort of human beings? You see so many different cultures. It must be so fascinating.
I guess I've learned to recognize that the cultural pieces, when we try and analyze the food system, you really have to look at culture, right?
Yes.
If you want to try to understand what's happening within a society, what's happening in a country, why a supply chain is geared a certain way, like the answer to that comes from culture, right? And then you can draw, you can start answering further questions. But when you go all the way back, it starts there, right? Why is that courgette with flour available, right? If you go to a supermarket near Chianti, well, because there's demand for it, because there's consumption. But why is there demand? Well, because
what's the history of that?
What's the history of that? Well, it's because people cook with the flours. And why is that? Well, because that is still maintained, and there's still enough people cooking with the flours so that they demand it, and there's a market, and there's a farmer growing it, and it's because of that. But you go to the Midwest of the U.S. and they've never cooked with a courgette flour. And
what's the history of that? Is that because
I think there are certain societies where food is more prominent, and there are other societies where food is just not. Culture is made up of what? Language, food, habits, behaviors. Some cultures, food is massive, right? It's like at the center of everything. And food in the US hasn't been at the center of everything.
Espressos is sponsored by supply chain software gurus Unleashed. It talks to your e-com and accounting software. It's helped islands cut admin time in half, get granular clarity on your margins, know where your stock is, don't miss availability. Brands like Candy Kittens, Tiny Rebel, and Trip all use Unleashed, and so should you.